The chamber still smelled of scorched plasma from the last execution when Jackson Van stepped forward. He'd risked his life to clear out an entire pirate armada for Baron Therax, and this was his reward? A paralyzed woman slumped at his feet like forgotten cargo. Therax lounged back on his crystalline throne, emerald skin gleaming under the neon light. You wanted compensation. Human, he purred. Take my daughter. She's of no use to me now. Perhaps she'll serve you better. Jackson's jaw tightened. He'd been cheated before, but never quite like this. Yet as his hand hovered near the sidearm strapped to his thigh, his gaze locked with Hayes, Lyra. Her body might have betrayed her, but her eyes burned with a kind of intelligence he hadn't seen in years. They weren't the eyes of a victim. They were the eyes of someone who still had plans. Get her off my floor, Therax hissed, as if her very presence offended him. Or get off my planet. It would have been easy to walk away. Just leave this twisted deal behind and cut his losses. But something about the way she clenched her jaw, silent, defiant, stopped him. Jackson wasn't a hero, and he sure as hell wasn't a savior. But he was a man who hated being underestimated. Fine, he said, his voice low and controlled. I'll take your joke. Therax's grin widened, smug and certain that this problem was now off his hands. But as Jackson lifted Lyra into his arms, lighter than he expected, she leaned close enough for only him to hear. 7 days, she whispered. Keep me alive for 7 days, and I'll make you rich enough to buy this entire sector. Jackson blinked. The words weren't a plea. They were a promise. And for the first time since stepping foot into Therax's citadel, he felt the familiar prickle of danger, not from the Baron, but from the girl he was supposed to discard. As the docking bay doors sealed behind him and his ship roared to life, Jackson realized something unsettling. This job was no longer about credits. It was about a mystery, and the strange, dangerous potential now sitting in his cargo hold. The stellar Nomad sliced through the void, its worn engines humming like an old war song. Jackson sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars drift past the viewport, but his focus kept slipping to the woman strapped into the jump seat behind him. Lyra hadn't spoken since they'd left Therax's citadel, until now. You're thinking about selling me, she said flatly, her eyes fixed on the floor. Jackson didn't bother denying it. Wouldn't blame me if I did. People would pay a fortune for a noble, even one who can't walk. She laughed, a dry, bitter sound. They'd pay more if they knew what I know. He glanced back, intrigued despite himself. And what exactly is that? Secrets, she said, meeting his gaze. My father's empire isn't just weapons and politics. He's building something bigger, something that could burn entire worlds. And I know where the pieces are. Jackson leaned back, crossing his arms. And I suppose you're just going to hand that over out of gratitude. Gratitude? Her lips twisted into a smirk. No, a deal. You get me to a medical facility, not the usual kind, the restricted kind, and I'll give you enough intel to buy a fleet. You help me walk again, and I help you rewrite the balance of power. It was madness, dangerous, reckless madness, and yet the fire in her voice, the certainty in her eyes, made it hard to dismiss. Before he could respond, the ship jolted violently, proximity alarm screaming. A sleek Hunter-class frigate had locked on to their position. Therax's men, Lyra said calmly, as if she had expected this. He never lets go of loose ends. Jackson cursed under his breath and began evasive maneuvers. The Nomad groaned as plasma fire streaked past its hull. In the chaos, Lyra's composure didn't crack once. Still thinking about selling me, she shouted over the alarms. Not anymore, he growled, gripping the controls. Looks like we're partners now. And in that single, chaotic moment, with enemies closing in and a fragile alliance forming, Jackson realized the truth. He hadn't taken on a burden. He'd taken on a storm. The Nomad limped into orbit around a forgotten moon, its scorched hull still glowing from chase. Jackson powered down the engines and exhaled, chest tight with adrenaline. They had escaped, but barely. And now, floating in the quiet between stars, they finally had time to face the impossible bargain that bound them together. Lyra had already wheeled herself to the main console, pulling up a holo map of the galaxy. Her fingers danced over the interface with practiced precision. Hey, she said, highlighting a star system deep in uncharted space. That's where we're going. Jackson leaned closer, eyebrows knitting. That's a black site. No-fly zone. Even mercenaries avoid it. That's why it's perfect, she replied. It's where my father keeps the prototypes, including the neural regeneration tech that crippled me in the first place. It was the first time she'd spoken openly about her condition, and Jackson didn't miss the bitterness in her voice. You're saying he did this to you? Her jaw tightened. Not intentionally. I was the first test subject. When it failed, he called me a liability and tried to erase the evidence. She looked up, and for a moment the arrogance was gone, replaced by raw, human vulnerability. I don't want revenge, Jackson. I want a choice. To walk again. To be more than what he left me. He didn't answer right away. Part of him wanted to walk away from this insane plan. But another part, the part that had seen soldiers discarded after war, the part that hated injustice, refused. Then we'll get you there, he said finally. But if this goes south, I expect a damn good payday. Lyra's mouth curved into a faint, knowing smile. You'll get more than credits. Before he could ask what that meant, an urgent beat cut through the silence. An encrypted message had slipped past their firewalls. It wasn't from Therax. It was from someone else, a name Jackson hadn't heard in years. Commander Krell. The message was short but chilling. We know what she is, and we're coming. Jackson's heart sank. Their mission had just become more than a desperate gamble. They weren't the hunters anymore. They were the hunted. The encrypted message lingered on the screen like a curse, its meaning heavy and undeniable. Commander Krell wasn't just anyone. He was a man Jackson had once served under, a tactician who didn't pursue people unless he had a reason. And if Krell was coming, it meant one thing. Lyra wasn't the only one with a target on her back now. Who is he? She asked quietly, reading the shift in Jackson's face. Old friend, he muttered. Or at least he used to be. If he's involved, we're in deeper than I thought. Lyra folded her hands in her lap, composure unshaken. Then we move faster. Krell's not coming for me. He's coming for what's inside me. Jackson frowned. Meaning? She hesitated, then pulled a small chip from beneath the collar of her gown. When the neural prototype failed, my father didn't just abandon the project. He implanted a fragment of the AI interface inside my spine, without telling me. It's not just medical technology. It's a weapon. A living, evolving weapon. The silence that followed was heavier than the vacuum outside. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why Therax had discarded her, why assassins kept coming, why Krell was on the hunt. Lyra wasn't a liability. She was the key to controlling every starship and defense grid in the sector. Before Jackson could respond, proximity alarms screamed again. 3 ships dropped out of hyperspace, their signatures unmistakable. Krell's fleet. They found us, he said, teeth clenched. Lyra's eyes were calm, almost cold. Then we stopped running. What are you suggesting? I can interface with their ships, shut down their weapons, maybe even turn them on each other. Jackson stared at her, realizing the risk. If the AI fought back, it could burn out her neural system completely. You'd be gambling your life. She met his gaze without flinching. I already did when I trusted you. There was no time to argue. Jackson brought the Nomad systems online, preparing for a fight they might not survive. As plasma fire lit up the darkness and Lyra closed her eyes to connect with the enemy, one thought echoed in his mind. She wasn't cargo. She wasn't a burden. She was a spark that could ignite a war, or end one forever. The Nomad shuddered under the weight of enemy fire, its shield screaming with every impact. Jackson wrestled with the controls, weaving through plasma streaks that painted the void in violent shades of blue and red. But the real battle wasn't in the stars. It was unfolding inside the woman beside him. Lyra sat perfectly still, her eyes closed, her breath measured. Through the neural implant, she reached beyond her body, into the heart of Krell's fleet. The sensation was overwhelming, thousands of systems pulsing, overlapping, resisting. Sweat beaded on her skin as she pushed deeper, overriding one security layer after another. They're adapting, Jackson warned, scanning the targeting readouts. I can't keep dodging forever. Just a few more seconds, she whispered. Her voice was strained but steady. Almost there. Then, suddenly, silence. The enemy cannon stopped firing. Warning lights blinked across the enemy fleet's hulls. One by one, ships powered down, weapons shutting off as if they'd simply surrendered. Jackson blinked in disbelief. You did it. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. No, she said softly. We did. But their victory was short-lived. Krell's flagship remained active, and a single transmission cut through the void. You don't understand what you're tampering with, Krell's voice growled. That technology isn't just a weapon, it's a crown. And whoever controls it rules the future. Jackson didn't hesitate. Then the future belongs to neither of us. He triggered the Nomad's override, sending a surge through Lyra's implant, enough to wipe the AI fragment before it could ever be weaponized. It was a gamble that could erase everything, including her. The ship trembled. Alarms wailed. And then, stillness. Lyra slumped forward, unconscious but alive. The weapon was gone. The galaxy's most dangerous secret had died with it. Weeks later, she walked, unsteady, trembling, but walking, onto a platform overlooking a liberated colony. Jackson stood beside her, leaning on the railing. You could have sold me, she said quietly. Walked away. Could have, he admitted. But then I'd have missed the best mistake of my life. And as the stars shimmered beyond the horizon, the discarded daughter and the reluctant mercenary stood side by side, not as captor and captive, but as partners who had turned a cool joke into a revolution.